Good morning and welcome to day 79 of Walk with Winston. I'm greeting you from Tampa again this morning, and it is glorious here today. I just posted on Instagram and Facebook a picture of unfiltered Florida beginning to a new day. And when I think about new beginnings and endings, this time of year is really remarkable to me in terms of how tropical season is finally coming to an end here. It is well, you know, with palm trees and everything else here, it can be quite muggy and never really get a chance to turn off the air conditioning much of the summer. But now tropical season's ending and the glorious season of beautiful weather has arrived, which also means the arrival of the snowbirds, which has its own challenges here in Florida in terms of traffic. Well, today I wanted to talk about reframing endings. You know, when we think about endings, a lot of us associate deep pain with an ending. And so many endings have a sad tinge to them. We get through a season of life, we get a relationship ends, or we lose a loved one, or we have some other challenge that really wrecks us for a period of time. And I was listening to some content this morning that reminded me that maybe, you know, how everything in God's world seems very counterintuitive, and while we mourn a lot of endings of seasons of life, maybe our Creator views those as celebrations, views those as new beginnings, as something to be treasured and celebrated. So you think of the seed that gets buried in the ground, and it's dead for all intents and purposes, but then it springs to life. So I want to share this morning a turning point in my career that really was a very painful ending of a dream of mine, but then turned into a whole new career that I could not have imagined later. So the first 18 years of my career, I worked in international nonprofit today named United Way. And I was a high achiever in that community. I was named the youngest vice president of a major market. I became the youngest CEO of a mid-sized market. I was deeply involved at the national level as an instructor or trainer. I was a representative on the board of the national organization. I sat on the audit committee during a time of tumultuous change. At the national level, I was deeply involved in a lot of national technology initiatives, and I was flying high. My career trajectory was bright. But then, you know, when you're involved in a lot of national efforts, and yet you're hired by a local board, when you know, they get to a place where they're saying, hey, you work more for them than you work for us. And my ego was very well inflamed at that point, where I was thinking that I was really the person in charge. And ultimately, you know, even as a leader at the top of an organization, you're stewarding the organization for the benefit of the owners. And in the case of a not-for-profit, the board of directors is the ultimate owner. So this was 18 years into my United Way career. And again, I was flying high on so many dimensions, and yet I was asked to step aside. And I was devastated. I could not believe that a career that I had nurtured, grown, and cultivated a national reputation would meet its demise at a local level. And I was really down for a bit. But you know, God is great. He is always preparing us for a new season. And so when that door closed, He had already been preparing a new door for it to open. And one of the passions I had in that job was trying to be more efficient and more focused on our community-facing work. And that passion turned into the next season of my career, which began literally 30 days later, when I became a consultant on a project that looked at creating a shared IT service across multiple nonprofits, again, United Ways. 6 months later, after the consulting role, I was hired as employee number 1 of this new entity. And that fundamentally changed the trajectory of my life, because now I was doing something way more entrepreneurial, way more service-oriented, and way more in alignment with my core gifts and talents. So as you think about your transformation, maybe you're having to say goodbye to some things that have held you back in your life. Maybe you are stepping into a new beginning. So rather than, what's the right way to say this? Rather than mourn what you've lost, look forward to what you're beginning. With that, you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you again tomorrow from California.